Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Glossy Philosophy. My name is Jansen Binman. Today's look is inspired by a few things. It is inspired by the artistic direction that Midsummer Night's Dream was when I was in it a few months ago. The fairies were very punk rock, so I immediately thought of people like Green Day and Pink. When I started looking for visual inspiration, Pink really grabbed my attention because not only was she very influential in my life, especially in high school and early college days. She was one of the first females I ever heard kind of talk back against men, and not necessarily in a bad way, just in a I'm as strong as you and I'm not gonna take anything from you, which I loved so much, and I thought she had some really beautiful messages for females in general. So she is our inspiration today for the book talk, and if you like this look, make sure you stay tuned to see how to get it. I've already washed my face and done my skincare and put extra moisturizer on there because even though you may be performing under hot stage lights, or maybe you're going to a concert, a festival, anytime you really want your makeup to last, you always want your skin to have a little extra slip because you're going to be layering lots of light layers on top of each other for longevity. So let's get started by prepping the face. I'm going to start with my NARS Smudge Proof Eyeshadow Base. This one is clear. You always put it on your ring finger, split it so that you don't get too much silicone. But the key is that you want to pick something that can either neutralize the eyelid and grip onto eyeshadows, or just will grip onto the eyeshadows. So definitely something silicone based I have found personally is the best for someone with oilier lids or uses a lot of skincare with a lot of slip. The next thing we're going to do is color correct. So I'm going to take my Bobbi Brown corrector, and again with my ring finger, I'm just going to take a little bit and start to brighten up that under eye. We will be doing quite a punk rock eye look. We want to make sure that when we're doing our eye look that we don't get distracted by any discoloration that's happening underneath the eye or on the rest of the face. I also like when I'm doing lots of layers to do any correcting right away because it gives the skin just a chance for it to sink in a little bit more, especially if you are fresh faced right from washing your face and putting on your skincare. Sometimes you can see that as the makeup application goes on, you might need a little bit more corrector because maybe things have shifted with your face shifting, or just with skincare products kind of moving around with the heat of your own body. But you don't want to go overboard here. Again, really light layers. Using your fingers are a great tool. Going in with a brush afterwards is also a really great tool. If you feel like you need anything on around the nose, around the mouth, anywhere else, now is the time to do that. I am thinking of people who are going to be sweating quite a bit during a performance or during a music festival, so you have to keep that reality in mind that you are going to be sweating and you are going to be reapplying your makeup later, which we will talk about as we go through. So I'm not looking for absolute perfection because you're probably far enough away from the audience that maybe just a little bit of redness around the nose is going to be fine, especially because you're going in with something like the Lisa Aldrich foundation that will cover that up good enough for stage. The last thing we need to do to kind of prep the face is to tightline. Now this is a really great time to do this at the beginning. You can move on to other elements of the face if you need to, but you want to tightline at the beginning again so things can kind of move around. Not all tightlining pencils are the same. Some of them are going to move quite a bit. Some of them are going to take a little time to dry. Some of them will dry really quickly. So get to know all of your tools before the big day. I'm just very gently lifting up my lid and smudging that right into the lash line and covering up that pink part of the waterline right there. I have this picture of Pink right in front of me, and I can tell that she also has closed off her lower waterline, so we are going to do that same thing. This is the Lisa Eldridge pencil, by the way, in black treacle. And just really gently massaging that in. You can tell on that lower lash line, it gets a little bit trickier, but because we're going kind of grungy, kind of smudgy, I'm totally fine with this. I also know that I have a little bit more playtime with a pencil like this. And I'm just gonna use my finger to soften those edges. If this is a client, go in with a brush, go in with a Q-tip. I think one of the really fun things about going with a punk look is that everything is really smudgy, everything looks really lived in, kind of like it's been moving around for a little bit. It's not as graphic as we've been used to over the last few years in makeup, so it's a really fun kind of carefree look that goes along with punk music, right? You don't care about what everybody thinks, you're doing your own thing, your makeup reflects that as well. So now I'm going to go in with my foundation, and this is the Lisa Eldridge regular foundation, the Seamless Skin. I did 2 pumps. It totally depends on what you think you need. Because I'm thinking of stage again, I do want that extra coverage. So I'm doing those dots, and we will be going in and making sure that the skin is basically a blank slate. I'm using MAC eyeshadows and I'm not using carbon, so I know that the shadows aren't really going to fall out. If they are, it'll be very easy to clean up afterward. So just dotting around the face and making sure that everything is nice and blended. If you can get your base on and just everything really nicely set up, you will have so much less cleanup to do during intermission than you would if you really rush this step. This is where you want to spend your time, is setting up the face. So give yourself some time. I'm going to say at least 30 to 45 minutes because you are doing so many layers. Now this video tutorial is not going to be that long. We will be kind of jumping around just so that you don't spend all day watching this tutorial, but just know that when I'm in a show, I am making sure that I have a good 30 to 45 minutes, especially in the beginning when I'm still figuring out what I want my character to look like. You can see that I've pretty much used up all of my product. Now, whether or not you can bring it down your neck really depends on the costume and the costumer, so be aware of that. You know, be aware that someone has taken time to create a costume for you. You don't want to get makeup on that, and you probably have many shows to do, so keep that in mind and don't get the costume person upset with you because they are a huge asset for you and your character. Now I'm going to do the brows because I want to make sure that everything is really nice and balanced, and again, it's just really setting up. It's giving your face a nice setup. So just combing through and making sure that everything looks nice and even, and I am going to go a little bit darker because I know that those lights are going to be hitting me. I know that the audience needs to see my facial expressions from far away. So I am going to go a little bit darker than I normally would and take just a little bit more time. Everything, I mean, this goes with special events as well, just taking a little bit more time and making sure that you really got that symmetry and that you've gone all the way to the root of the brow hair. So I'm using my normal color, but I'm just pressing a little bit harder, and you can see that it just comes in a little bit of a darker color. So be aware of that when you're doing your everyday makeup as well. If you feel like your color is too dark, you're probably pressing too hard. And then of course, eyebrows really tell a story in and of themselves. So make sure that you are doing your brows correctly for the time period that you are going for and the look that you are going for. If I was going directly from the photograph, Pink has kind of bleached out her brows and they've kind of disappeared. The focus is really on the eyes. But again, because this is for stage, I need to make sure that you can see this area of my face really, really well because I'm going to be communicating with you as the audience through my eyes and through my facial expressions, which really comes through in the eye area. So keep that in mind. If you're going for a festival, just like go for the straight inspiration shoot. If this is for theater, make sure you got some brows. Next thing I'm going to do is do my lips. Now the lips are pretty bare, so I'm going to go in with the 1C from Lisa Eldridge, which is basically my lip color. You want to go in with a lip pencil even if it's really nice and soft and blended because of longevity. You just want to give as much time as you can for everything to sink in, and then you can touch up and layer on as you go. Really, I'm just trying to fill in my lips, give my lipstick or my lip gloss something to hold on to. And make sure you work that pencil into your lips, just as you would a lipstick. Then you will get to all the corners of your mouth in a different way than just lining them can. So I'm gonna leave this alone, and now we are going into the eyes before we do kind of the rest of the face. Because we are being inspired by pink, because we are being inspired by grunge, and because we are being inspired by Midsummer, I am going in with Marsh by MAC first. I'm actually gonna use my Sonia Kashuk tapered crease brush. I'm just going to saturate that entire brush, and I'm going to start filling in the lid area. Always from the outer part first. And then bringing that in and up into the socket and into the crease. So I'm shifting my brush as I'm doing this, and I also know that I'm going to bring it out a little bit further than I normally would because that's what pink did. So the side of your brush can be really fluffy, and then using that tip, that nice tapered part, to get into the socket. And this is such a great brown green color. Now that I have that base down, I'm going to go in with my 217 into the same color, so back into Marsh. And I'm just going to build that up a little bit. I want to make sure that I'm really building this green up a little bit more before I go in with my darker colors, because I want this to peek through underneath. And I'm just going to follow my bone structure and softly start to bring that out. I can even go in with something like the 207 from BK Beauty, back into Marsh, and get a deeper saturated level just by using a denser brush. And you can see now we're really starting to build smokier eye with just one shadow. Now I'm going to switch into Embark, which is a nice red, deep brown. And I'm actually going to brush off my 207 and go in with that directly, do a placement, and then blend out. And we will absolutely be going in with our black liner to make that very smudgy. So I want Embark, and I want my liner to meet up in a very cohesive way. So we'll be using Victoria Beckham's Kajal liner for that. Brushing off my 217 and just softening that a little bit. Before we get into any more shadow work, I am going to go in with the Kajal liner because I want to make sure that that is really nice and soft and sooty. So this is in the black, newly sharpened. And I'm going with the Kajal because it's just a little bit softer than Lisa's. And I'm really just using the side of this because I'm going to soften it with the sponge. And then really using that sponge to soften it almost like it fades into the eyeshadow that we just did. So same thing on the other side. So now we have our city eye, and now we need to get that really nice kind of punk wing. When you are doing stage work, especially outside, you have to go with a lot of waterproof products. And I'm going to be using the Stila because it never lets me down. Following that lower lash line, I'm going to stop it right about there, and then I'm going to bring my shadow out. I'm going to go in with a pencil brush, and I'm going to mix Embark with Marsh and just kind of keep that line going a little bit further out, so then it kind of softens but also adds. This will also help with the longevity. All right, I think we are looking really nice and punky. Now we need to do the under eye area. So going back in with my pencil brush, I'm going in with Embark only, and we are just going to invite the lower lash line to the party. So what's going on up here? Now, I've spoken about this before, but when I semi-close my eyes, I have a little bit of a lower lid. So that is kind of my area for covering up when I'm going with a really smoky eye. So I just squint my eyes and make sure that whole lower lid is being taken care of. And then going back in with my 217 with Marsh, squinting, and just adding a little bit of that underneath as well. When I worked at Sephora, I always used to tell clients what goes up must come down. So if you're doing a look like this, you have to bring whatever's on the top onto the bottom for a really nice cohesive look. Now, because we are doing the character of Titania, and even though glitter is not a part of Pink's look here, our Titania had quite a bit of glitter. So we are going with a little bit of glitter just to show that fairy fun. I'm just gonna put that right on the ball of my eye and soften that with just my finger. And that adds just a little bit. If I feel like I need to, I can always go back into Embark on the 217 and make sure that we have a nice darker outer part of the eye so that we are being seen from the audience. I'm going to go in with my Sonia Kashuk and just soften that because again, we want everything to be nice and soft for our punk Titania look. I'm going to say let the eyes alone for a little bit, finish the complexion, and go in with your lashes. Your eyes have undergone quite a bit at this point, so let's get into complexion. Because we are doing stage, I'm going to go in with Charlotte Tilbury's Hollywood Contour, and I'm just going right under that cheekbone, and I'm not going to worry about that. Right under that cheekbone, and then of course along the sides, because I want to create some really nice depth. And I'm thinking about just creating a really slender oval in the center of my face, which I've basically done. Like this part is going to be nice and bright, and this part is going to recede just a little bit. I have found with this product that using a beauty blender is really, really great. I'm also going to be going over this with a powder as well, just again for longevity. So let's talk about what happens during intermission. During intermission, you will reassess your face and what you need. If you are performing outside, you will probably need some kind of a base touch-up, and you've probably sweat off some of your contour. However, your eyes should be perfection and your lips should be in really good shape unless you've been doing very intimate scenes on stage. You, instead of putting on foundation over a sweaty face, because who has time to actually clean their face and redo it, you're gonna grab something like a tinted moisturizer, something that has a lighter weight finish that you can just dry your face as quickly as possible. Throw on a little bit of a light skin tint and then go back in with this. So in my kit, when I bring it to stage, are going to be these two things and powder. If I have time, I will also add a little bit of blush, but I might not have that kind of time, but at least I know that this is what the audience is going to see, and I'm going to take away as much shine as possible, which will really, really help. Again, I don't have to touch my eyes and I don't have to touch my lips usually. Speaking of blush, we are going to go in with Muse Gloss from Lisa Eldridge. I'm going to put that on the back of my hand. I'm going to take her liquid highlighter and we are going to create a cream blush. Now, if you have a cream blush, great. If you don't, just use your lipstick or your lip gloss, and just to get a little bit of something on the cheek. Yes, it will add a touch of shine, but if you're playing a fairy, I think that really works. I love Muse because it's so skin tony. It's very brown, a brownie pink. You can always go in with your beauty blender if it feels like it's too much. Now we are ready to put on concealer and get some powdered products on before we finish up with our mascara. So I'm gonna take my concealer. Concealer is also a great thing to bring as well because, I mean, you will know where you sweat by showtime and you will know what parts of the makeup need to be touched up. For me, it's really the cheek area that seems to completely disappear if it is very, very hot. Now we are ready to set. I'm going to set with the Chanel powder that I just tapped off onto my lid. And then for the show, I'm going to bring a translucent powder. I don't want to bring a colored powder because a colored powder on a sweaty or oily face does not look good. But I want to add just a little extra something, a little extra coverage, especially through the center of my face. If I feel like it's going to be too much for underneath my eyes, then I can always switch to my translucent powder. But I have found that the Chanel really, really locks things in place, even on very like 90+ degree performances. So now we are ready to basically do the exact same thing that we just did, except with powder. So I'm going in with my Charlotte Tilbury bronzer on my BK Beauty bronzer brush, and you can see that this is just really nicely lightly sculpted, so the powder will just help to enhance a little bit. And again, it's another layer that will just give an extra depth. And I'm not putting on too much. It's not gonna get everywhere. It's not gonna get on my co-star. It's gonna be just fine. Still leaving the center of that face alone as much as possible. Going in with some kind of a blush that matches the cream one that you just did. For stage, I really like skin tone brownie blushes. If you feel like you went overboard, you can always grab your foundation brush. Even though this is on top of powder, nothing's going to happen because your brush isn't loaded down anymore, but it might have just a little bit of your foundation left. We're gonna take a pause. We're gonna reassess. Everything is looking really good. I'm gonna add a little bit of that Muse gloss. And now I'm ready for mascara. Again, for showtime, you're definitely going to want a waterproof. I really had good luck with the Bobbi Brown because I'm not performing today. I am going in with the Tarte Lights Camera Lashes simply because it's much easier to take off once the tutorial is done. But if you are doing lashes, I always recommend doing your mascara first and then putting on your lashes, because once mascara gets on lashes, it's almost impossible to reuse them. You really want to be aware of when you put your mascara on in the process. That is the finished look. Thank you guys so much for watching this pink inspired, punk inspired, and Midsummer Night's Dream inspired makeup look. Again, I think it's really fun to step outside of our comfort zone and try out some makeup looks from people that we admire, or if we are inspired by a book, a play, anything, and just kind of see what would that character look like. Makeup allows us to very easily step into someone else's shoes without spending too much money and without really changing that much about ourselves. I do fashion videos every Wednesday, beauty videos every Friday. Make sure you are following me on Instagram and watching the shorts in between, because I have lots of before and afters of makeup tutorials and lots of outfit inspiration to make your life a little bit easier and a little bit more glossy. And I will see you very soon in the next one. Bye.